And then on my mystery school, the emphasis is in using the divination arts. That's how we clean our vision, become hygienic, find the way back, so to speak, using those very arts, Kabbalah, Tarot, astrology, numerology. Those are the four windows to the soul. So in one sense, we can look at it that way. I think that Kabbalah is good. I use it because even though it's contaminated, as I said, by some of this higher, lower stuff, it has some other, teachings, other principles that are really, really profound. And one of them is that the Kabbalah is all about mirrors, right? You have these 10 sephirah. It's like our word for sphere. The sephirah, these sort of realms. These are just stages of mentality. As we get higher on the tree, we have a more clear vision. And when we get lower down in the tree, then things get complicated. The soul gets more entangled, and so on. But each of these zones, in a way, is like a mirror. In fact, some Kabbalistic schools actually show a lightning flash bouncing off the 10 mirrors. Some people have also described that fall of light or descent of energy in musical terms, that it's like a great sound, a great symphonic, note, a chord, a song that was, when it's with God, it's in its purest form, and then it gets more discordant and chaotic. So there's so much. Originally, Kabbalah was a tree, because the Jewish Kabbalah comes actually from the ancient Arya, and in those days it was actually always shown as a tree, with its roots in the ground and branches in the heavens. That same thing you see when you look at the Norse sagas. Again, the High Arya show it as a tree. But what I was going to say is that the mirror-like quality is very, very valuable, because you and I made that little quote that I always use, which is that in the lower, or in the smaller, is the higher, in the minute and in the lesser, is always contained the greater. And this also then pertains to the Kabbalah and its system. What I mean specifically by that is that in the lower sephirah, these are called the little face that reflects the higher face. So in other words, at the lowest part of the Kabbalah, the highest sephirah, the highest truth is in some way enfolded. And one would say that holds vice versa, that of course in the unity of God, everything in creation, everything that we call reality was enfolded. But the same thing is the other way, that we're never lost. We're never completely abandoned, because even at the lowest aspect of life, in the deepest gutter, in the deepest troughs of life, and one can speak about that, psychologically or spiritually, whatever way you want to put it. But in that darkness, so to speak, spiritual darkness, there is always light, always just enough to take us back to the right road, should we have, again, the way of seeing. This is the key thing. The way of thinking, the way of understanding, you see. So this is turns out to be a beautiful metaphor then of the so-called fall that Roshin's talking about. On another level, the Kabbalah is saying there's various ways of getting back. There's the straight way of the mystic. There's the winding way back up the tree of the magician. And I think what they're doing there is trying to account for the two kinds of personality that there are. There's those who are the ascetic type, who just sits, meditates, abandons the world, abandons all of its entrapments, and tries to go back in that more traditional mystical way. And then there may be a person who says, no, we have to go through every aspect of reality. This is the veil of error, and we're not meant to avoid those errors. We're actually in this plane so that we can learn by our errors, and that means revisiting every step of the way, every reality, every obstacle, do it the grindingly slow way, step by step up the great staircase back to, unity, to the top of the tree, to the top of the pyramid of enlightenment. So this accounts, some people call it the path of the arrow being the straight way, the path of the serpent being the slower way. Ultimately, the Kabbalists say you reach the end anyway. So it really doesn't matter which way you go. And so there's certain truth to that. There's definitely certain truth to that. There are these two different kinds of person, where it's almost like, the fool who persists in his folly becomes wise, as William Blake said, that you have to go through all the trials and tribulations of earth, you know, marriages and births and jobs and connections and fallings outs and wars and slaughters and mayhem and all the attainment artistically and professionally, you know, all of the different modes of life that exist. This is part of learning through experience where the human errors are, and then by a very slow, gradual, meticulous process, excising them from consciousness, excising them from our being, as opposed to this sort of jumping out of the body and negating and then just trying to ascend. There's these two different ways, you see. So again, there's some very, very fine aspects, and on my mystery school we go into extremely deep areas of the Kabbalah in relation to a person's personal chart, and exactly how they can find these, you know, golden keys of enlightenment, as we would call it.